Welcome to another special main event edition of In the Fight, a Section 247 presentation. I am Michael Lipinski. I am joined, as always, by Brett Halpern, and today's special guest, Cage Fury Fighting Championship heavyweight champion of the world, Shawn Teed. Shawn, what is going on? How are you today?
I'm good. How are you guys doing today?
Doing well.
Yeah, we're here, so that's half the battle. That's why I like to say. Let's get right into this. A little bit of a crazy few days for you. You were set to main event Cage Fury Fighting Championship 82 at the 2300 Arena in Philadelphia next week, and that fight is now postponed. Has there been any changes to your fight schedule? Are you going to fight on short notice, or are you now you're looking?
No, so they're trying to find a replacement for me. It's not postponed. They're trying everything they can to get me a last minute opponent, but it's kind of like super last minute because we all have to get COVID tested by Saturday.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like basically you're taking a fight on 2 days notice, but then you have till Wednesday. So yeah, so they're trying to find me some guys. They're talking to a few people right now, and nothing to report yet. I don't have any contracts, so that's all really going with that.
Yeah, you were set to fight Chris Daukaus, your first ever opponent, actually, and he was moved up to UFC 252.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned the COVID testing. That's something we want to get into. Cage Fury Fighting Championships, one of the biggest regional promotions in the country, perhaps the biggest, has decided to run 2 empty arena shows, similar to your Bellators, your UFCs. What is the process? You mentioned the testing on Saturday, but moving forward with that, what was the process, the thought process there from the organization?
Well, I don't know. I like on their end, they can't sell tickets and stuff like that. But I think they're biting the bullet and putting on shows. They're on UFC Fight Pass. So, hey, I'm glad that they're putting on shows. Rather than having everybody else sit on the shelf until they can have audiences, because the way everything is going, who knows, after February, because some college sports aren't even opening back up till after February. So who knows when we would have been able to fight if we were just waiting for audiences and stuff. So, I'm super pumped about it because then I don't have to sit on the shelf.
Yeah, absolutely. So Shawn, let me ask, in terms of your training camp, how have things changed because of the pandemic?
Not I mean, I wasn't able to go up north to I wrestled up at Mawa and stuff like that. So I wasn't able to go up there because it was a lot of high school kids and college kids and stuff like that. So wasn't going up there. Everything was pretty tight knit here. I have one of my main training partners is Carl Roberson. He's in the UFC. So I was able to start my camp when he was in his camp and go stuff like that. I have Jimmy Lawson. Sorry, I don't know why I always do that. Jimmy Lawson, super high end wrestler. He's probably I would say me and him are probably the top 1 and 2 heavyweights probably on the East Coast. He just needs more fights, honestly. Scary. He's a scary dude. He's 280 and he's 2 or 3 time All-American. Just powerhouse. Wow. He's a powerhouse. So I've been working with him, working a lot on striking because I was versatile striker. My hands have really I feel like this is the song and dance that everybody says, this is the best I've ever felt, stuff like that. But I was able to really isolate things because I actually, until a few weeks ago, I didn't even know I had a fight, and I was already training. I was already doing jiu-jitsu. I was over at Tom the Blast rolling with him, Tom the Blast BJJ, rolling with him and some of his higher end guys. And so not too much changed for me, knock on wood, thankfully. I was able to really get some really hard pushes in this camp. So, sparring was a little bit scarce. But I'm not too, as a heavyweight, I'm not too big on that, because we all hit hard. It's that meat on meat contact, all the time. It kind of sucks after a while. So, I was kind of liking that a little bit.
No, I can imagine. So even though you don't so right now it's up in the air whether or not you have a fight. So right now, we're 5 days out from when you may have a fight. So
Yeah.
What do you normally do in terms of the training camp at this point, at this stage of the game? Are you tampering down? Have you reached like your peak condition?
Yeah, I did all, like I said, I did all that stuff in house. I did all my strength conditioning in house
Yeah.
this camp too. I forgot to mention that. But yeah, it's just a lot of breaking sweats and staying where you are. In 5 days you're not gonna learn anything astronomical.
Yeah.
Your cardio is not gonna get that much better in 5 days. If you are, you're probably gonna be a little sore. So it's just that kind of like where we are right now. We're in a great spot. So it's just keep on cruise control. Hopefully fight comes through. I should know. I kind of have to know by like Friday night if I have an opponent or not, because then obviously they're not going to pay to get me COVID tested if I don't have a fight.
Yeah.
So I got a day or two where they can try to find somebody to pop in there. So I'm still training like I have a fight. I still went and did my rounds today. Got up early, went over there, still did work with Carl. So, I'm still training like I have a fight until they tell me I don't have a fight. Just because if I was like, oh, I don't have a fight, and I started pounding pasta and started eating pizza and stuff like that, and all of a sudden they're like, hey, you have a fight. And I'm like, shit. Okay, I gotta cut weight again.
Yeah.
So.
You were set to fight an opponent that you had already fought. Were you specifically game planning that way? I mean, does that change now, or is it? You just mentioned that you're preparing. Or was your thought process the whole time? I just have a fight. I'm just going to go out there and do my thing.
I always train for anywhere a fight can go, because you never really, like, I fought Chris in my very first pro fight. It was his like third pro fight, and he has like 11 of them, or 11 or 12 of them, whatever it is. A lot can change. Just because you see somebody throwing hands doesn't mean they don't know how to wrestle. Doesn't mean they don't know how to do other things, jujitsu, stuff like that. So you kind of gotta, me, I like to not just specifically game plan for one person, because through my career I have had many of pro fights fall out to get last minute replacements and stuff like that. So, it's always in that state of, plus, I'm still relatively new in MMA, even though will be my 10th pro fight. I jumped into it pretty fast. I went 3-0 as amateur and then jumped right into pro. So I'm kind of been learning things on the job, per se. So, just still, sharpening all my tools. You never know what you're going to have to use.
You mentioned that you jumped into the game. What was your background? Were you a wrestler coming up? We spoke with Lenny Rufati, who fights out of Rufus Sport. He fights on Ring of Combat cards, and I knew him as he was up and coming, and he was a football player, had no background in wrestling or anything in jiu-jitsu, and fell in love with the sport. How about you? Did you have a background in wrestling? Were you involved in martial arts coming up, and this was just a natural progression?
Yeah, I started wrestling when I was 5, and then all the way up till I was like 14, 15. And then we moved to a town that didn't have a wrestling team. So, I played football for a little bit. And then luckily, one of my dad's friends was an instructor at Ricardo Almeida's. So like he was like, you got to come over here and try this. You're athletic, come over here. And, I've been at Ricardo's ever since. Obviously I added a lot of other gyms that I go to for various things, but my home gym's always been Ricardo Almeida's. So there is for jiu-jitsu. And then all of my striking has been at a Killer Bee, combat sports and stuff like that. Everything striking wise, kicking wise has been through there.
So Shawn, I know, for instance, like Sherdog lists you at 248. When you're not in fight camp, are how high how high does your weight go?
I don't think I've actually been 248 since like my pro debut.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. I had a phase there for a while where I had like a thing in my head, oh, I want it to be lighter. I want it to be lighter. I want it to be lighter. Like I
yeah,
was light. I had good cardio, but I felt not strong. So
yeah,
then I tried both ends of the spectrum. I tried where I was cutting for fights and stuff like that. And I hate cutting weights because it reminds me of wrestling days. I don't like it.
I'm sure.
So right now I walk around like my last few fights. I'm really in shape this fight. I'm walking around like high 250s right now. Probably about fight day, I'll probably come in, in the 60s somewhere.
Gotcha. So basically, Sherdog needs to get their shit together.
I mean, they have people that have been like retired for 2 years higher
I
than me on rankings. Some of the pages.
I
So
know some of the it is pretty remarkable.
it is what it is. Like I've had people with losing records that have never actually fought at heavyweight that are ranked higher than me on pages. So I don't really pay attention to the rankings.
Yeah, of
So
course,
it
of
is what
course.
it is. Because
Well,
rankings really don't mean nothing.
yeah,
I'm ranked higher than Chris and his opponent they both just got signed to the UFC, and I'm ranked higher than those
yeah,
guys across the board on everything. So like
yeah,
I mean it is what it is.
Right.
yeah.
Hey, thank you for bringing that up. I was going to say you've where you're ranked and where is there and where Chris was. I see you beat him in your first fight, record wise. He's now in the UFC. It was one of those things where it kind of made me say, "Huh, is that just circumstance?"
I don't know. Like I said, I have no clue. But hey, congrats to him getting there. Listen, we're all in this to get to that level. He got there a little bit earlier than me. Cool. I had to take a year plus off for my shoulder surgery. He ended up getting more fights. He has a good record. Hey, hats off to him. But at least when I get to that level, it'll be a first easy call out for me. So
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I have to ask, have you thought about trademarking Teedlock?
um no, it's just one of those things that like it's stuck. It's basically
Yeah.
just like a Kimura from the bottom.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I mean, regardless, like some people, like I have associates that are from different gyms and stuff like that are instructors that teach it as the teed lock and stuff like that, which I think is pretty cool.
You got to get a T-shirt though.
Yeah, I'm telling you, you should look at it. So for people that don't, for those that don't know, I believe it's if you include your amateur fights, it's what 5 of your 6 submission wins have come from the key lock. Is that correct?
Something like that. I'm a big arm
Yeah.
torsion guy.
Yeah.
You like let me grab your arm, I'm gonna rip it off. So like that's the big trend. If you look at like any of my fight T-shirts or anything,
Yeah.
they all have like something to do with broken arms and stuff like that. So
Where can we find your fight T-shirts?
they're on my Instagram and stuff like that. I'm just gonna pull up a picture really fast and show it to you guys on the camera. But I don't have a clue where that is. I wasn't thinking about it on the fly.
Well, that's okay.
But
While you and Brett talk, I can actually pull up your Instagram and share the screen,
okay.
and we'll do it that way.
Oh, there we go. So, yeah. So 5 of the 6, and then, obviously you had your opportunity on Dana White's Contender Series. Is the fight with? Would you love another shot at Juan Adams?
I don't. It's a fight. Like everybody wants to avenge losses.
Yeah.
That's the thing. But like, it is what it is. Like that fight, had a bunch of stuff going on. I won out, and I tore my labrum in 2 spots. In the
Yeah.
first like 30 seconds. But like, listen, I'm not one for excuses. Hey,
Yeah.
hats off to him. He beat me. He had a better showing that day. Sometimes MMA fights are coin flips.
Yeah.
But hey, it is what it is. He had his run in the UFC. He won some fights. He lost a few fights. He got kicked out. So he's fighting. I think he's fighting over in Russia or something. Somebody told me. I don't know.
Yeah.
But like, it is what it is. We're all in this. It's a business. So
Yeah.
like if I took every single time like I lost or somebody didn't like me for something personal, I wouldn't like a lot of people. So
No, I understand. In terms of the atmosphere there, how much different? Oh, we pulled up the shirt.
yeah, so like that's all like arms. Like I tell people like I take their arms home. So like it's stuff like that. And I'm Norwegian, so it worked out really good into that.
I like that.
Yeah.
So the in terms of the atmosphere when you were fighting, so the season you were on season 2 of Dana White's Contender Series, so it was still back in the Ultimate Fighter gym, right? It wasn't at the Apex yet.
Yeah, it was at the Ultimate Fighter gym, yeah.
Yeah, was it a lot different than fighting, for instance, in Cage Fury and some of your other fights because it was more like the warehouse kind of feel?
Yeah, I mean it was a little different. It was kind of like just going into like a sparring session a little bit.
Yeah,
It's like some people that like messes you up, some people it doesn't. Like me, when I get in there, like, yes, I like, acknowledge the crowd when I'm walking out, but like I've wrestled for a very long time. So like when I'm in there, I don't hear anything but like
Yeah.
my coach.
Yeah.
So it's, it to me, that didn't really make too much of a difference. It was more like I went in, threw like a left hook, all of a sudden my arm hurt, and I was like, this is going to be a shitty day in the office, So
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Yeah. I remember you landed a big overhand right too. So you hurt your left shoulder in the fight?
Yes, my left shoulder.
Gotcha.
One of the things we were talking about off air is what you're into kind of outside the cage. And we don't talk exclusively just MMA here. So I saw on your Instagram that you were into bow hunting and gaming. I want to start with the bow hunting because I'm friends with a bunch of hunters who are, they're using guns. Now I have a couple friends that are bow hunters. And to me, I always joke with them like, you're the legit hunters. That is the hardest thing to do. Pulling that thing back. People look at it, it's easy. You just shoot, point and shoot. It is one of the hardest things, I think, in the world. Maybe like with hitting a golf ball. How did you get into that? And you say you travel all over the country hunting. Obviously a passion of yours.
Yeah, I got into it randomly. Like one of my buddies, like when I was younger, I shotgun hunted and stuff like that. Kind of fell off because I wasn't really super into it. And then I had a buddy, I want to say about 5 or 6 years ago, that was like, hey, you got to get into bow hunting. It's really challenging. It's really awesome. So like I fell down that rabbit hole, got into it, bought a bunch of stuff, was doing it in my backyard, stuff like that. But luckily, my one of my teammates, Corey Anderson, is really into bow hunting too. So we like outside of fighting, we had like something to like bond over. So like I've met a lot of great contacts through him. Like, I'm sponsored by PSE, I'm sponsored by a company called Aces and Arrows, which is a shop out in Vegas. I have a bunch of other hunting sponsors. I'm not going to sit here and ramble them off, but, that have made hunting like a pursuable avenue besides just fighting, because you only have a very short amount of time in this sport. You only take so many punches to the head and stuff like that. So, it's made it a very awesome thing to do as like a possible career avenue after. And it's also I'm super passionate about it as a hobby, so it's a 2-for-1 special.
So it's not actually, if you make it a career, it's not going to work. It's doing what you enjoy.
Yeah.
The other thing you were into, and still are, is gaming, and we were discussing that. And a little bit older than you, I feel as though I missed the boat on the whole gaming thing. But talk about getting into gaming, and you have a Twitch feed, twitch.tv/TeedMMA, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Talk about this, and you have a story with it. How did you get into the gaming online? Because I'll tell you, my only experience gaming online was, this is now dating probably back 7 years. I played NCAA football against a kid online, and I'm sure he was like 8, and he beat me, and I got frustrated, and I never played again.
Yeah.
How'd you get into it, and talk about your passion for it?
Yeah, I got into it, like when I was like in that age between where I said I was wrestling and when I was playing football, like in that area, I got really, really heavy into gaming, just because, it was just a different avenue that I liked. But I got into, a bunch of like World of Warcraft, super heavy, fell down that rabbit hole. I wouldn't recommend falling down that rabbit hole. That thing sucks you in there really bad. And then like Call of Duty and stuff like that. Sorry about that. So like, and then years later, I actually ended up meeting my fiance on there. So it like we were playing WoW together, had no intentions, of anything. Didn't even know where she lived. It was just, chit chatting as a normal person. And then she was like, "Oh, I'm going to the beach," and I'm a nosy ass person, so I was like, "Oh, what beach?" So she was like, "Oh, I'm going to Seaside," or something like that. I was like, "In Jersey?" I was like, and we ended up living like 30 minutes apart from each other. So like it was a little sketchy. Like we talked on Skype, video chatted, make sure we weren't catfishing each other and stuff
make
like
sure you're
that.
not on MTV.
Yeah, exactly. So and then we met, and we've been together ever since. We've been together. I should know this, like 8 or 9 years now. Like super. We're getting married next year, November 7th. So
Congratulations.
thank you.
That's yeah. Well, I'll just say my brief gaming. I once bought I think it was like one of the World of Warcrafts. I couldn't get out of the initial room, so I'm a terrible gamer. So yeah, like when I'm listening to you guys, I'm like, all right, that's. But so going back to the fighting, a few other questions I had for you. One was, do you always use the same walkout song?
No, I've changed it a few times. Like I used to when I first started fighting. I think it was Let the Bodies Hit the Floor.
Okay.
That's what I walked out to. Then I walked out to Annie Up. Then I walked out to for my title fight. I walked out to On the Come Up by Big Shawn.
Yeah.
And this fight, I'm walking out to Annie Up again. It's a
Okay.
it's a good after fight song because it gets you going. So
Yeah,
I like it.
And so, do you have any when you first got into the sport? Were there any fighters that you kind of either tried to model your game after, or others that you just love watching them fight?
So, I wouldn't say that like there was a particular fighter that was like I want to be this guy. Like I came up in a room full of very high end guys. Like when I first started doing MMA and stuff, it's like when Frankie Edgar was like UFC champion and he was in the same room as me, and that's when like Tom DeBlass was in his heyday, and
Yeah.
Andrew Riddle was in there. There was a bunch of really Henzo was still in that room and stuff like that. There was a bunch of super heavy hitter guys in there. So you take a little, like me being a younger guy, I was just taking a little bit like, all right, I see that this works. I see like that works. I see that that didn't work. So
Yeah.
it was around things. And then when I was starting to like go amateur is when I started to be one of Corey Anderson's main training partners. So like just that pure wrestling relentlessness, and like he's getting better, like putting hands into it with wrestling and everything, so becoming a bigger complete fighter. So that's, if I would say I modeled myself, not modeled, but I took bigger chunks from a fighter, I would say it was from Corey, just because he puts his foot on the pedal and doesn't really let off.
Yeah.
And that's a huge thing, especially a heavyweight. Everybody thinks heavyweight's gas and stuff like that. I put a big exclamation point on my cardio. Like, I don't want to ever lose a fight because I got tired, because then I'm going to murder myself in my head, because oh, you shouldn't have lost to this guy. You just, were, an ass and didn't work yourself hard at the gym. Like if like I'm ones where I work myself till I throw up in the gym all the time. So like if in my head, if I'm not working myself to that point, I know that I can be, and it actually messes with me at that aspect.
Yeah. What also when you first started training, how long was it until you took your first amateur fight?
Years. Like
Yeah.
I was just a wrestler, had no hands. Even when I made my pro debut, I had no hands still. Like I cycled through a lot of boxing coaches, and it was a lot of heavyweight's a little bit different than like a lot of boxing coaching, especially MMA heavyweight. It's a lot of difference than just like pity pat punches or something like that, because everybody's just trying to look for that one big shot. So like I really didn't start really focusing on striking until I was like 4 fights deep as pro. So like that's why I said I was like learning on the job.
Yeah.
So but I've taken a big thing like that. Brian Wright over at Killer B, he's really taken that, lumpy mold of a fighter and really started to fine tune things and smooth out all the edges and stuff like that. That's why I was really looking forward to this fight versus Chris. Because everybody's like, oh, he's such a good striker, this, that, he moves so good. Personally, I think my striking's better than him. I haven't really had to show too much striking. Like my last fight, I kind of just pop shot it and picked my shots, and the guy gassed out and took him down and beat on him till the ref made me get off of him. Like I didn't really have to show much. So that's why I was looking for it, because I knew he was going to come out wanting to fight, because he has a loss to me. Of course, you're going to come out with a chip on your shoulder and wanting to fight, and that's what I was preparing for. So if they get an opponent for me and the guy's not game to be a fight like that, you know, it's going to be a really short night for whoever it is in front of me.
Yeah.
Was there a fight as a fan, as a up and coming fighter that you looked at and said, that's my favorite fight of all time? Or is it just you're taking in everything?
It's hard for me to pick like one particular fight. You know, everybody has like one thing. I was a very big fan of like Matt Hughes and GSP and stuff like that when I was, you know, coming up, you know, just watching those guys, and I'm like, these guys are beating people. Like GSP would beat guys at their strong point to prove a point, and you know, and then wrestle, dump people. Same thing with Matt Hughes. You pick people up, run across the ring, and slam them down and stuff like that. You know, like it was stuff like that that I really, really liked. That I was like, you know, I think I could do this as a career, not just as a hobby. You know, something where I'm older, I can be like, you know, I had, you know, 5 professional fights. You know, I'm like, I could take this as an actual career where, you know, I pay my house bills with this and stuff like that. You know.
Outside of the immediate, we hope that you have a fight coming up next week in Philadelphia. What does the future hold for the Norwegian Nightmare?
Well, right now I'm not looking past this fight. Yes, I would like to go to a bigger organization. You know, everybody says that. You know, I have a job to do next Wednesday, hopefully. You know, and then, you know, then we can start looking at everything, you know, because Chris got on, you know, and like, I'm not even mad about it. Like, we're all on that cusp to going to that next step. And, you know, it's just getting there, you know, and that's where the actual work starts. As soon as, you know, you work so hard to get to that next step, and then that's actually basically your starting point. So yes, I would like to make the jump, but, you know, everything happens for a reason. So, you know, let's get through this fight, go in, hopefully have a really dominant performance. And then, you know, like I said, it would be an easy call out for me to have as my first thing. You know, if he goes in there, wins or loses, doesn't really matter, and I get a contract, I'm like, hey, you know, let's run this back.
Makes sense to me.
That does make sense. Where can everybody find you? You have a lot of social media presence. Definitely drop the gaming thing because I think that's pretty awesome in the Twitch. Where can everybody find you?
So I'm Teed MMA on Instagram and on Twitch. That's my Facebook also. I'm barely ever on Facebook, you know. But even my Twitter is just Teed. It's just 4 letters. So yeah, I'm really heavy on there with my hunting stuff, you know, fighting stuff. I try to, you know, have a lot of different things on there. So you know, I'm starting a YouTube channel, so it'll be good.
Nice. And we're going to put all this in the show notes, and we'll be sure to follow your YouTube channel. And I might actually have to go. Are you an Xbox guy or a PlayStation guy?
I have all consoles. I game a lot on PC.
Okay.
So yeah.
Also, then I'm going to want to talk to you after the fact to figure out how to mod out games that people are talking about online. And I'm like, oh, I can play college football now. Anyway, that's for a different show and a different time. We appreciate you coming on. We wish you the best of luck in the future. Hopefully, we get to see you fight this week coming up, and enjoy it. Be safe, and we'll see you down the road.